Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service, and I'll be your host for the show today. As always, if you'd like additional weather information, you can go to weather.gov/Alaska online, and there's all sorts of things to look through and find there. And if you like the old-fashioned way, a recorded phone forecast can be obtained through 1-800-472-0391. And a programming note I want to pass along. Starting tomorrow, Thursday, May 20th, the Alaska Weather TV show will air at 6:30 p.m. for those of you who get the show via KTOO 360 TV. So our friends there watching through KTOO 360 TV, starting tomorrow, this show will air at 6:30 p.m. and from that point onward. Well, taking a look at any sorts of hazardous weather advisories that are currently in effect, we continue to see north there of the Yukon River, especially around Adigan, passes on up toward Arctic Village. A winter weather advisory remains in effect for tonight into early Thursday, as well as along the northeast Arctic coast around Dead Horse and Katovik. As much as 1.5 inches to 2 inches of snow fell late last night, early this morning in the Bettles area, and the snow is currently working its way through Adigan and Anaktuvik passes and will be moving into the northeast Arctic coast during the day tomorrow. Otherwise, there was also some patchy frost reported early this morning in the vicinity of Juneau, the Upper Lynn Canal, and Glacier Bay. And once again, there could be a little patchy frost there. The chances tonight won't be quite as good as they were the past two nights. And more cloud cover will begin to move in to the southeast here as we head through the day tomorrow, with rain developing across much of the southeast coastal areas there for Thursday night into Friday. Another item we'll pass along in the marine segment, we have storm warnings in effect for Shelikof Strait, including the mouth of Cook Inlet and between the Kenai and Kodiak Island, as strong easterly and northeasterly winds will have developed in association with an occluded front that will be lifting up through that region later tonight and during the day tomorrow. River watch, we've had a pretty easy breakup this year in most cases, with the exception of the flooding that happened in Buckland. But otherwise, we need your help, and we appreciate any type of reports you can pass along, pictures or videos, and you can submit your reports to nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov. And if it's something more interesting and important, or if there's something more serious nature, you can call 1-800-847-1739 and speak with someone at the River Forecast Center. We did get a report earlier today in the Galena area along the Yukon River. There was a pretty good driftwood flow that came through there, and the locals were harvesting some of that wood, but nevertheless it made it a bit tricky for navigating the boats to do that. So that was an interesting report, the kind of thing we'd like to hear about too as well. It doesn't have to be just ice and high water levels or flooding. Well, taking a look at the satellite imagery, the most prominent things on the map, I guess we'll start first along the central areas of the state. You see that little curl in the clouds lifting up through north central areas there north of the Yukon River. That is an upper level disturbance that helped produce that snow in Bettles late last night, early this morning. It's also what's tending to keep the snow going up there along the Brooks Range north slope toward the northeast Arctic coast as we head into tomorrow. Also, there have been a few thunderstorms pop up northeast of Fort Yukon there, and we'll have that potential again tomorrow in some of those areas working down along the Alaska-Canadian border. Otherwise, look at the extensive cloud cover now that's moved up into south central areas from the Kenai back through Kodiak Island and the southwest peninsula. That is associated with a frontal system, an occluded front that is lifting northward at this time through southwest Alaska and Kodiak Island. There's quite a bit of rain associated with that area of low pressure that will be remaining off the southwest peninsula coast, but nevertheless having a broad influence across the southern half of the state, including the Gulf of Alaska. And as we head through time, even some of that moisture is going to work its way into the southeast, especially along the southeast coast tomorrow night, Thursday night into Friday. Otherwise, back toward the west, we still see some areas of fog and lower cloudiness there, the Seward Peninsula down towards St. Lawrence Island. So on the weather map today, this late Wednesday afternoon, there's that area of low pressure south of the eastern Aleutians in the North Pacific, with the occluded front lifting north and northeastward with bands of rain and some fog. See, weak low pressure lingers over the east central parts of the state with some rumbles of thunder there just to the northeast there of Fairbanks, and then the area of snow working its way across the Brook Range toward the northeast Arctic coast. Weak high pressure along the west toward the Bering Strait there is keeping some low cloudiness and fog in place, and yet another weak system way out into the western Aleutians. So later tonight into tomorrow morning, we'll continue to see that low spin there south of the Aleutians and southwest peninsula, with the occluded front spinning northward, spreading areas of rain across the southwest part of the state through Kodiak Island and making some inroads there up through the Kenai. Some of the mountainous areas of the interior, south central interior, could begin to pick up some light snow showers, and that'll be the case during the day tomorrow. The rain could be a bit heavier. Some moderate to heavy rain will be possible Thursday on the east sides of Kodiak Island, as well as the Kenai Peninsula, as that system will have brisk easterly winds that are producing some storm force gusts, especially at the mouth of Cook Inlet and down through Shelikof Strait. On Friday, the low pressures will tend to just weaken, and we'll continue to see troughs of low pressure lag across central parts of the state back through the southwest and then out over the Gulf of Alaska, with more rain spreading into the southeast coast and lingering lighter showers making it up into the south central interior, with perhaps a rumble of thunder the upper Kuskokwim Valley on the west and north sides of the Alaska Range. So temperatures tonight should generally stop in the lower 40s across the southeast, though a few breaks in the clouds could allow some mid and upper 30s. To the west, we see lows generally upper 30s to lower 40s across much of the south central areas, and then high temperatures Thursday afternoon could still squeak out 60 degrees or so, McGrath over toward the Talkeetna and Glen Allen, whereas cloud cover will be on the increase, which should keep temperatures down. Instead of near normal highs of 60, we'll see the southeast be in the lower 50s. And then low temperatures Friday morning, more uniform, lower mid-40s across the inner waterways of the southeast. And then much of the south central areas will be around 40 in the interior, but lower 40s beneath clouds and some rain showers there, the Kenai down toward the Kodiak Island. And as a result, that will tend to keep temperatures, especially from the southern Kenai down through the southwest peninsula, mainly in the 40s. Though you could still squeak out 60 up there. It will be a little drier toward Talkeetna in the valley. Low temperatures come Thursday morning will be in the lower 20s along the Arctic coast, around freezing, and through just above the freezing mark there in the Yukon Valley. Warmer temperatures, though, we could see temperatures mid-upper 60s, including highs Galena of 64 and Tanana up to 68 degrees. Low temperatures Friday morning will still be in the lower 20s along the Arctic coast, but lower 40s with more in the way of cloud cover there through the Yukon Valley. And then temperatures warmest will be up toward Fort Yukon, could be about 65 Friday afternoon. Extending down along the southwest coast, we are looking for lows Thursday morning to generally be in the lower 40s with some lower mid-30s as you get out toward the west and the Kuskokwim and Yukon deltas. And then high temperatures Thursday afternoon will be warmest as you get up midstream, up midway through the Yukon and Kuskokwim basins. Otherwise, we're looking for highs generally 40s to near 50 degrees along the southwest coast, extending out through the Aleutians. And Friday morning lows will be a few degrees warmer with the cloud cover in areas of light precipitation, lows generally around or just a tad above 40 degrees. And then temperatures on Friday holding in the 40s and 50s. And a quick check of the temperature outlook here going from May 25th through the 29th. That takes us up into the beginning of Memorial Day weekend. Temperatures are expected to average above normal across the western half of the state, up to slightly above normal there along northern parts, with near normal temperatures across south central areas and the southeast. Precipitation could average slightly above normal throughout the southwest, south central coast, and the southeast. So that's your statewide weather, and enjoy the end of this week.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Here's your aviation weather for planning purposes as we head through Thursday and Friday to round out the week. We are looking for IFR conditions to continue along the spine of the Brooks Range down through the North Slope and Arctic coast. We have areas, pockets of IFR off the coast of the southeast, as well as from along the Kenai back through Kodiak Island and along especially the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. And as we go into Thursday afternoon, we'll see some of the IFR conditions kind of shrink back there toward the Arctic coast. There could be an isolated rumble of thunder, primarily just north there of the Yukon Flats in the far northeast. As we go down along south central areas from the Kenai to Kodiak Island, we're watching a frontal system that'll be lifting northward, bringing areas of rain and some lower cloudiness. And then back to the west, we see pretty extensive low cloudiness in areas of stratus and fog out over the central Bering. And going into Friday morning, look for IFR conditions along portions of the North Slope to the Arctic coast, with along again some patchy freezing fog and perhaps a few flurries. Areas along the south central coast and the Gulf of Alaska will see some IFR conditions, and then extending back to the Alaska Peninsula and out over much of the Bering. And then for Friday afternoon, still a sliver there of some IFR conditions along the North Slope and Arctic coast, and then also more extensively across the inner waterways of the southeast as the frontal system and more rain pushes up through the southeast, with lingering areas back towards south central coastline and out to the tip of the Alaska Peninsula and approaching parts of the west. Past conditions on Thursday, Anaktuvuk will see IFR conditions to start the day, with improving conditions to VFR, especially south entrance and areas south. Same thing for Adigan, IFR conditions in the morning, improving to VFR, especially the southern entrance and areas further south. Lake Clark and Merrill should see IFR conditions with some lower cloud cover and rain that'll be moving up into the areas. And then also Rainy Pass will stay IFR on Thursday. Windy Pass as well as Isabel Pass should be MVFR throughout the day on Thursday. Further east, Mentasta will be VFR, but Tanita, as we drop back toward the southwest there, will be MVFR. And right now, Portage should start out with IFR conditions, with MVFR conditions more likely north and west of the western entrance as we go through the afternoon. And look for conditions at Chilkoot and White to start MVFR, briefly VFR conditions for Thursday afternoon. But there will be more rain moving into the region and lower cloud cover as we head into Friday. Freezing levels are generally above 4,000 feet across much of the interior, with areas of enhanced maybe around or a bit above 6,000 feet in east central areas of the upper Yukon Valley and also along south central coast, extending out into the southwest peninsula, whereas the west remains at or below 2,000 feet, especially along the northwest Arctic coast. Icing potential will exist primarily the better place along that frontal system that's lifting north through the southwest peninsula, Kodiak Island, south end of the Kenai, between 8,000 and 16,000 feet on Thursday. 6,000 to 12,000 feet the eastern interior, 1,000 to 6,000 feet along the Arctic coast, and 3,000 to 12,000 feet the eastern Aleutians. Upper level jet stream winds are predominantly out of the west across the interior. They are near and north of the Yukon River, where wind max there of about 70 to 75 knots, and then down toward the inner waterways, northwesterly winds of 60 knots, with a low pressure circulation there south of the southwest peninsula there in the North Pacific. And then as we drop down to lower levels, we see southerly flow coming onshore into portions of south central Alaska, 30 upwards to 50 knots. And then back on the other side of the low, the back side of the low, winds out of the north there in through the eastern Aleutians at 40 to 50 knots. And Thursday, there could be some turbulence as a result of some stronger low-level 3,000-foot winds of 45 upwards to 65 knots from south central areas of Prince William Sound to south end of the Kenai and the mouth of Cook Inlet. And as a result, we do expect some surface turbulence on the backside of the low there, especially in through the eastern Aleutians. And then out ahead of it, with that frontal system lifting northward, we could see turbulence surface to 4,000 feet, especially there across the southwest and around Cook Inlet, up toward isolated pockets along the Alaska Range. So if you're heading out, Have a safe flight.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving the
cool.
water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
and there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
No, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach. that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right?
Right.
You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is
Okay.
going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and
Okay.
you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down.
Okay.
And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami
Right.
or
okay.
something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology
Yes.
and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before.
Yep.
So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about EPSCoR, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKEPSCOR, right? EPSCoR, Alaska EPSCoR, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation,
Yes,
so
sir.
more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
It's marine weather time, and starting out with the sea ice edge today, we continue to see the sea ice breaking up as we expect the springtime breakup to just progress with melting continuing, and a large area of open water is developed now just to the southwest of St. Lawrence Island, and this will be the case as we progress deeper through spring and approach the summer solstice in June. So far, we don't anticipate now at this point any redevelopment of any ice, we're just too far along now in the breakup season. And looking at the marine forecast for southeast areas, the inner waterways will see winds generally from the south there, Petersburg northward up through Lynn Canal at 5 to 15 knots, waves 2 to 3 feet. And along the coastal areas of the Gulf, winds will be southeasterly, anywhere from 10 to upwards to 25 and 30 knots once you get west of Yakutat, as the frontal system is going to be lifting northward through the Gulf of Alaska, increasing the gradient. And swells will generally be around 5-6 feet south end, but upwards of 10 to 13 feet through south central areas. And for Friday, inner waterways, southeast to south winds 15 to 20 knots, waves running a few feet. But again, along the coast, we'll see the strongest winds north of Sitka through Yakutat, where 30 to 35 knot winds are likely, and swells of 10 to 15 feet. More importantly, looking at Thursday's marine forecast, we have storm force east to northeast winds there at the mouth of Cook Inlet and between Kodiak Island and the south end of the Kenai, with swells of 10 to 16 feet. Further north, winds will be out of the east across Prince William Sound with waves around 4 feet. And then once the frontal system lifts a little farther north and weakens, we'll see winds not as strong on Friday, though. Out across the northern Gulf, winds will still be from the southeast, as high as 35 knots there to the southeast of Cordova. And then along the Kenai, southeasterly at 20 knots and easterly there at the mouth of Cook Inlet. Waves in the open Gulf will generally be running 10 to 15 feet and 5 to 6 feet in Cook Inlet. Across the Alaska Peninsula, funneling coming through there through Shelikof Strait with 50-knot northeasterly winds possible through the day Thursday. And then lesser winds out of the northeast, 20-25 knots as you go down the Alaska Peninsula, and waves anywhere from as high as 10 to 13 feet in northern areas to 6 to 7 feet on the Bering side. And then winds will lighten with the passage, low pressure primarily south and east of the Alaska Peninsula. Still southerly winds ahead of it, 10 to 15 knots, but on the backside, shifting northwesterly, 25 knots, and waves 7 to 8 feet on either side, the Bering or the Pacific. In through the Aleutians, the eastern Aleutians will see winds turn around to the north and northwest on the backside of the low, anywhere from 30 to 40 knots, and waves between 10 and 15 feet. For Friday, continued northwesterly winds trying to turn a little more westerly through the central Aleutians, and waves generally 5 to 8 feet on the Bering side and 5 to 9 feet on the Pacific side. Looking at the western coast areas, the pack ice is continuing to break up and gradually melt, but in the open waters, north winds 30 knots with 9-foot waves there around St. Paul, St. George. Winds will turn more westerly across the eastern and southeast Bering there at 20 knots with waves around 6 feet. Over the ice, though, Norton Sound southeasterly at 15 knots, and then along the Arctic coast for Thursday, winds 15 to as high as 30 knots out of the east, but more northerly as you get down toward Kotzebue Sound and across the western end there of the Seward Peninsula, and easterly winds up to 30 knots there along the northeast Arctic coast, Prudhoe Bay to Katuvik, and then more northeast to north running down the length of the west and northwest coast there to the Seward Peninsula. And a quick check of the weather map shows that low pressure there just off of the southern tip there of the southwest peninsula, with some moderately heavier rains there pulling into the eastern Kodiak Island and the Kenai. And this system will continue to gradually weaken and lift a little more northeasterly into Friday, with that remnants of the occluded front moving up into the northern Gulf of Alaska. And again, just one final programming note to reiterate. Starting tomorrow, May 20th, the Alaska TV Weather Show will air at 6:30 p.m. instead of 7:30 p.m. for our friends who watch us on KTOO 360 TV. So that wraps it up for a show for this Wednesday, and we look forward to you joining us again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.